Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Got lots to catch you up on with today's show. First, we bring you up to date on the latest coronavirus numbers from the state and the city of Detroit.
We talk about the challenges businesses up north will face opening for Memorial Day weekend.
Poop as a harbinger of the coronavirus second wave.
Oakland County will offer $30 million in federal aid to local governments.
Dan Gilbert wins a contract to oversee contact tracing.
We've got news about some business reopenings and closings and the annual Theater Bazaar Halloween party.
And we'll see 2 live stream music festivals in Detroit before the month is up.
That's your lineup, so please fasten your seatbelts and remain seated in the cabin as we dive in. Let's get started with some numbers. The state of Michigan has surpassed 5,000 deaths due to the coronavirus, although the number per day continues to slow significantly. There are more than 52,000 confirmed cases statewide. The virus is still out there and outbreaks are still a real possibility. But here are a couple other interesting Metro Detroit data points. Henry Ford Health System has only 122 COVID-19 patients right now, and they've discharged nearly 2,000. And in the past 7 days, the city of Detroit has lost 35 residents to the virus. That's tragic, but that's almost half the 66 reported the previous 7 days. So that is trending in the right direction. Also in Detroit, there were 15 recorded deaths in the last day, but only one that occurred in the last 24 hours. This discrepancy is happening as data reporting is catching up. And overall, Michigan is one of just 2 states, the other is New Mexico, provisionally meeting White House reopening criteria according to Data Mapping Service COVID Exit Strategy, a nonpartisan online project. This is for the second day in a row. If this continues, we're going to see more opening up. So Sven, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about what businesses are going to have to go through to make this happen. It seems like they may as well prepare now.
Yeah, that's right. The governor's emergency order lasts through, it's been extended a couple times. It lasts through May 28th. Here's to hoping that, we start to see some opening up once we get to that date. The governor, for her part, issued a new executive order requiring businesses to have strict safety precautions in place for workers and patrons before they can reopen. The order will require businesses to provide COVID-19 training covering infection control practices, how to properly use PPE, steps to notify businesses about symptoms or a suspected or confirmed diagnosis, and also how to report unsafe working conditions. Businesses will have to make their response and preparedness plans available to employees by June 1st. Governor Whitmer also signed a directive to appoint a director of workplace safety to oversee all this at the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity.
Vote by mail is going to take a big jump here in Michigan, thanks to Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's decision to send applications to all 7.7 million registered voters in the state. There are various practical benefits to this during a pandemic, including limiting the number of in-person poll locations needed, as well as the long lines that could encourage spread of the virus. There are critics, especially elected leaders and strategists on the right, who do not like this practice being widespread and without real evidence claim that it makes voter fraud easier. I'll repeat here that there is and has been no significant evidence of voter fraud in this country. What voting by mail does do is it makes it easier for people who have busier schedules, as well as lower income folks who, they're juggling 2 or 3 jobs. Vote by mail also enjoys widespread support among voters across the country. Folks both young and old like it. Although it's coming to your mailboxes, you can also download an application at michigan.gov/vote if you want to get ahead of the curve. Sven, I know you got some thoughts on this one.
Well, I'm firmly in favor of voting by mail. I'm a huge supporter of no reason absentee ballot voting. I voted in favor of it a couple of years ago, whenever it was on the ballot. This whole argument about voter fraud and laws that have popped up around the country to supposedly, root it out they're really solutions in search of a problem. There is no evidence of wide-scale voter fraud in this country. It is true that poor people tend to vote Democratic. Um, so, Republicans are right. I concede that. But Republicans like voting by mail, too. It's proved popular among right-leaning voters. And President Donald Trump has criticized voting by mail, and he's even said candidly, in public, that this will benefit Democratic voters and hurt Republicans. But he also has a record of voting by mail himself. So, it's just such a non-issue that I think a lot of people are ready to kind of move past.
President Donald Trump is expected to visit Ford Motor Company's Rawsonville assembly plant near Ypsilanti on Thursday. The plant has been making ventilators for the federal government at the plant using paid volunteer UAW employees since last month. But Sven, apparently there is a conflict around personal protection protocol, sir.
That's right. Mark Cavett, reporter at the Oakland Press, tweeted earlier today as we record this that the president has been briefed on Ford's policy regarding workplace safety measures, which include wearing a mask. But they basically said that, whatever the president chooses to do is up to him. And Vice President Mike Pence made headlines when he visited a hospital and was shown not wearing a mask. He was the only one in the entire entourage and all the photographs that emerged from that visit who was not wearing a protective face mask.
Setting aside politics, I think it's about respect for where you're going. If the policy of a place is wear a face mask,
wear a face mask.
I mean, wear a face mask until which point you're going to do your speech or whatever, then you put it back on. I don't know what's that hard about this. I am just disturbed by, personally, it's my personal opinion, I'm just disturbed by the fact that face masks have become a political football. None of this ever makes sense anymore, and I feel like I'm living in a funhouse zone. Like literally every time we do this show or anything revolving around this, I think I'm on a bad trip.
Yeah. Let's talk about poop now.
It turns out you can learn a lot by looking at what's in your sewer system.
Jer, I'm going to speak for a lot of our listeners, I think, and say thank you for ruining my breakfast.
Well, you're welcome, Sven. But I get it, and it may sound gross at first, and well, let's be honest, it does. But new data from a collaboration between Michigan State University, the Great Lakes Water Authority, and the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department shows that you may be able to predict COVID-19 outbreaks between 1 and 2 weeks ahead of time by looking at untreated sewage. With additional funding as part of a 2-year grant from the Great Lakes Water Authority, Michigan State and the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department are looking to refine the process and work on short, medium, and long-term disease threats and expand what they can look for, which I think this is really interesting from an epidemiological point of view. It's kind of fascinating I want to see that map.
Oakland County on Tuesday said it will set aside $30 million from its allocation of federal CARES Act funds for local cities, townships, and villages affected by the coronavirus pandemic. The money could be used to cover expenses including public safety, personal protective equipment, and establishing safety protocols to safely reopen. The plan is to distribute funds to each municipality in proportion to its population with a cap. Once the Board of Commissioners gives its approval, each recipient community would have to verify that the expenses meet the guidelines established by the federal government for the pandemic stimulus funds. The first round of funds is expected to go out by the end of June, followed by 2 additional rounds later on.
A controversial contract to do COVID-19 tracing has gone to Dan Gilbert's Rock Connections. The $1 million call center deal includes a text messaging component and will also have the consulting firm Deloitte involved. Contact tracing identifies people who've been in contact with a person who's been confirmed to have the coronavirus. It then notifies those people they should quarantine to stop spread of the virus and check themselves for symptoms. The contract from the state's Department of Health and Human Services originally went to Grand Rapids-based Great Lakes Community Engagement. The company is tied to a prominent Democratic Party consultant who was used on Governor Whitmer's election campaign. The contract was canceled after objections from Republicans. For her part, Whitmer said in a press conference last month that, quote, the correct process was not followed, unquote, when awarding the work, which was done through a subcontractor. Now to groceries and food. One of the more successful markets in the city of Detroit is Honeybee La Comena. I've been shopping there for years. But what they're doing with their workers to help deal with the coronavirus pandemic is really interesting. Where major chains like Kroger and others have been doing what they call hero bonuses that are temporary and then taken away, Honeybee, located just behind Michigan Central Station, is shutting down for a week starting Monday. And what they're doing is paying their employees during that time so that they can take a real break. Honeybee has been seeing an influx of customers, and of course, the stress of dealing with shoppers and the virus takes a toll on workers. They're apparently doing 50 and 60-hour work weeks to keep up with everything. The closure starts on Monday, May 25th, and runs through Sunday, May 31st. I will say, as a personal note, their guacamole, salsa, and chips are amazing, and they keep their produce section in top shape. I will be stocking up this week, Sven.
Also, a shout out to their breakfast burritos, which are sold at a few local retailers around town, but you can get them in the deli in the back of the store, and they're very good. Now on to beer. Founders Brewing has announced plans to reopen its tap rooms in Detroit and Grand Rapids for curbside pickup only. They've been closed since March, and the Detroit location was also closed for several months through February after the craft brewer was rocked by a lawsuit alleging racial discrimination by a former employee. The Detroit tap room will be open for beer pickup only and will be open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thursdays through Saturdays. Here's an added bonus. Founders says all frontline workers will receive 20% off the price of their order. The company is also asking customers to donate to its Employee Emergency Assistance Fund to benefit laid-off employees and their families in lieu of leaving a tip.
Theater Bazaar is the latest big event to fall victim to the COVID-19 pandemic. The organization announced on Facebook that it has decided to, quote, allow Theater Bazaar to slumber this year with plans to resurrect in 2021, unquote. And by the way, Sven, I always love their verbiage and how they put things. They just nail it every time.
Indeed.
Organizers cited the need to keep showgoers, performers, and crew members safe and said the annual event has weathered many obstacles in the past and come back stronger each time. The annual Halloween party is a wild and elaborate ball featuring heavily costumed attendees and dark carnival performances, and it's a lot of fun. It started in the 1990s at a studio inside the Russell Industrial Center in Detroit before moving to a sprawling property near the former Michigan State Fairgrounds, where it became famous as an all-night party. In 2010, the city of Detroit shut that down because of numerous code violations, hastening a move to the Fillmore Theater. It's been staged at the Masonic Temple since 2011, which is a great home for it. I am sad to see this, but it makes complete sense as this is an indoor event in an enclosed space.
Meanwhile, here's something that will take place and later this month. It's called the Everybody vs. COVID-19 Unity Festival, and it streams online May 29th and 30th. Among the performers are several Detroit artists, including Big Sean, Meyer Hawthorne, Seda Baby, DJ D Nice, La Brittany, and G-Mac Cash, the rapper behind viral hits including Big Gretch. The full lineup hasn't yet been announced, but will include more than 20 artists, entertainers, and social media influencers. The event is part of the city's effort to emphasize not just safe coronavirus safety practices, but the 2020 census count. Detroit is trying to encourage everyone to fill out their census forms because, well, it's key to receiving federal funding and making sure that we're adequately represented in Congress. The event is presented along with fashion designer Tommy Walker and his Detroit vs. Everybody brand of merchandise. The festival will be live streamed on the city's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels starting at 7 p.m. each day for about 3 hours.
Also, the Movement Music Festival has announced the lineup for its Movement at Home virtual edition of the fest, which starts Saturday and runs through Memorial Day, Monday, May 25th. Making a return are festival mainstays and Detroit techno legends Carl Craig and Kevin Saunderson, plus acts including Anna, DJ Godfather, Ghetto Blaster, Heidi, Matthew Deere, and Wajid. The 3-day festival will be hosted on Paxahau and Beatport's Twitch accounts and on Movement's website, Facebook, and YouTube channels. Contributions go to MusiCare's COVID-19 Relief Fund to help music industry people affected by the pandemic. We will link to more information in the show notes at movement.us. Sven, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get some glow sticks. I'm going to blast this out, and I'm going to lay on my backyard next to my bonfire for an hour just listening to this. Just lay on my back and stare at the sky.
Are you going to wear your Technicolor bell-bottom overalls too?
You know, I've got an all green, bright green suit that I wore one year to movement. I think I might have to do that, just like right in the middle of the lawn. I'll just blend in.
I'd like to see that photograph. And before we let you go, Mogo's suburban expansion is finally getting into gear. After some delays, the city of Oak Park says it's getting 5 new bike sharing stations installed this Thursday. The network, which launched a few years ago in downtown Detroit, will eventually run from the University District in Detroit, Ferndale, Oak Park, Huntington Woods, Berkeley, and Royal Oak. We've reached out to Mogo to find out when stations in those other cities are going in, and we'll give you an update if we hear back. There's no word on when the Oak Park stations will actually be operational, but this is part of a push by a number of Woodward Corridor suburbs to become more walkable and have more amenities for residents that aren't all about the car. And Jer, I am definitely excited to see Mogo expand into Ferndale and the other neighboring suburbs around me. I think it's going to be a huge asset for us. And that'll be it for today, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, we do this every day wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Yes, and also a reminder that we are a people-powered podcast.
That's Triple P.
That's right, Triple P. And if that Triple P moves you, think about becoming a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. It helps pay the bills. It's important for this thing going through that independent media has independent funding. It gives us a measure of stability, which is really great to have, and we're very thankful for our members for that.
Absolutely. With that, I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this together.